the night always listens before it speaks. In the quiet moments, when the world feels distant and the glow of the screen is the only light in the room, fear has a way of finding you. It doesn't rush, it waits. It settles into your chest like a slow breath you didn't realize you were holding. Tonight, these stories are not here simply to scare you. They are here to remind you how thin the line is between safety and disaster, between ordinary life and moments that change you forever. These are very disturbing true stories. The kind that don't end when the video does. The kind that linger in your thoughts when you turn off the lights. But hidden inside every shadow, there is something else, lessons carved out of terror, strength born from helplessness, and hope that survives even when fear feels overwhelming. Fear is often painted as the villain in our lives, something to be conquered or silenced. But in the darkest true stories, fear is not the enemy. Fear is the warning. It is the quiet voice that speaks before danger reveals itself. One woman learned this on a lonely highway late at night, driving for hours with nothing but the road and her thoughts for company. She noticed headlights behind her, far enough away to be subtle, close enough to feel intentional. She told herself she was imagining things. She turned up the radio, adjusted the mirror, tried to relax. Yet the feeling in her chest only tightened. Fear kept whispering that something wasn't right. Mile after mile passed, and the car never overtook her, never fell back. When the headlights finally disappeared, relief washed over her like warmth. She pulled into a rest stop, stepped out of her car, and inhaled the cold air. That was when a police officer ran toward her, shouting for her to get back inside. The car that had followed her wasn't stalking her, was protecting her. The driver had seen a man hide in her back seat when she stopped for gas earlier that night. Fear tried to save her long before she understood why. Fear noticed what logic missed. So many disturbing stories begin this way, with a feeling people ignore because they don't want to seem rude, dramatic, or foolish. A chill in an empty room, a sense of being watched, a sudden urge to leave. Those who survive often say the same thing afterward. I knew something was wrong. Fear doesn't scream, it nudges. It doesn't paralyze, it prepares. Darkness feeds on hesitation, on the moments when we talk ourselves out of listening to our instincts. When fear speaks, it is not there to control you. It is there to protect you, to remind you that your life matters enough to be guarded. Some of the most disturbing truths are that evil rarely announces itself. It doesn't always wear a mask or hide in abandoned places. Sometimes it smiles, speaks gently, and stands close enough to earn your trust. A babysitter once agreed to watch 2 children in a quiet suburban home. Everything felt normal at first. The television murmured softly. The house was warm. The kids slept upstairs. Then the phone rang. She answered it, but no one spoke. Minutes later, it rang again, the same silence. Uneasy, she called the parents, who told her to call the police if it happened again. When she did, the dispatcher asked her to leave the house immediately. The calls were coming from inside. Evil didn't break in that night. It was already there. The lesson is not to live suspicious of everyone, but to understand that trust must be earned, not assumed. The most disturbing stories often come from moments when people lowered their guard because everything seemed familiar. Silence, too, has a terrifying power. Many horror stories are filled with screams, but real-life terror is often quiet. A woman once became trapped in an elevator late at night in an office building that was nearly empty. She pressed the emergency button and waited, assuming help would come. Minutes turned into hours. Her phone battery died. Panic swelled, then faded into exhaustion. She realized too late that silence was working against her. With the last of her strength, she pried the doors open just enough to wave a piece of clothing through the crack whenever she heard footsteps. Someone finally noticed. She survived, but the lesson stayed with her forever. Fear doesn't always demand screaming, it demands action. Waiting politely for rescue can be deadly. Horror teaches us that sometimes survival means making noise, breaking rules, and refusing to disappear quietly. In the deepest darkness, when fear stretches longer than hope, faith often becomes the only light left. A man hiking alone was caught in a sudden storm and lost his way deep in the forest. His supplies ran out. Nights were freezing, days confusing. He spoke later about how fear began to eat at his thoughts, telling him he wouldn't make it out alive. To keep himself grounded, he started praying aloud, not because he expected a miracle, but because the sound of his own voice reminded him he was still alive. On the 9th day, weak and disoriented, he followed the sound of running water, just as he had prayed for guidance, and found a trail that led him back to civilization. In many disturbing true stories, belief, whether in God, purpose, or survival itself, is what keeps people moving when fear tells them to give up. Curiosity has its own dark edge. Humans are drawn to mysteries, to abandoned places, to secrets whispered about in low voices. But not every door should be opened. A group of urban explorers once entered an abandoned hospital rumored to be empty for decades. The air smelled stale, the halls echoed with their footsteps. Deep inside, they found something that didn't belong: fresh food, warm bedding, signs of recent life. They left immediately. Days later, they learned a violent squatter had been living there, someone who had attacked intruders before. Curiosity draws us forward, but caution keeps us alive. Horror reminds us that some answers come at too high a price. In many true horror stories, survival comes down to seconds, not strength, not preparation. Decision. A train conductor once felt something was wrong as the tracks ahead shuddered. Protocol told him to stay put. Instinct told him to move. He jumped from the carriage moments before it derailed. Others hesitated, waiting for instructions that never came. The difference between life and death was not bravery, but action. Fear doesn't always give you time to think. Sometimes, it asks you to choose, right now, without certainty. Horror teaches us that imperfect action can be safer than perfect hesitation. There are moments when escape feels impossible, when fear becomes a constant companion instead of a sudden shock. In those moments, resilience is born. A woman abducted and held captive 4 days later described how she focused on small details: the sound of footsteps, the timing of doors opening, the smell of the room. She refused to let fear erase her awareness. When the chance came, she escaped, and the details she remembered helped authorities rescue others too. Horror strips life down to its rawest form, and in doing so, reveals strength people never knew they had. Survival is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet endurance, breath by breath, moment by moment. A man who survived the home invasion later shared his story publicly, describing mistakes he made and warning signs he missed. Months later, someone reached out to him, saying his advice helped them escape a similar situation. Horror stories are not told for entertainment alone. These very disturbing, true, scary stories are reminders that the world holds darkness, but it also holds incredible courage. Fear does not mean weakness, it means awareness. And more determined to protect your life and the lives of those you love, then the fear has served a purpose. May unseen dangers pass you by, and may your instincts speak loudly when they need to. And fill you with strength when fear tries to take hold, reminding you that, even in the darkest moments, you were never meant to face them alone.